Okay, welcome back everyone. I think we'll get going. And now the theme, our final theme, where we have a couple of talks, is community engagement. And both these projects are excellent examples of multi-sectoral approach. So we're going to start with Claudia Nieto Sanchez, who will be telling us about a project in Jimma, Ethiopia, preventing vector-borne disease outbreaks in peri-urban settings. And then we'll have Francis Mutuku talking about trash to treasure, collecting trash for profit, and at the same time reducing mosquito breeding sites. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and Claudia, over to you.
Thank you, as I said before, for your efforts to bringing us together in spite of so many difficulties this year. So the project I want to talk to you about is preventing vector-borne disease outbreaks in emergent peri-urban settings of Jimma, city in Ethiopia, where we designed a transdisciplinary study about integrating housing development, a program developed by the Ethiopian government in different cities of the country. This project has been conducted by Jimma University, Addis Ababa University, the Institute of Tropical Medicine in Antwerp, and Wittenbos, an architect firm here in Antwerp. So the project, as I said before, really was looking into global megatrends that are somehow affecting vector control. That's where we came from. And we were really thinking in these megatrends as climate change, rising urbanization, mass migration in different areas, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. We looked into Ethiopia because of the high urbanization rates in the country that are already among the highest in the world, projected to grow from 21% to 39% in the relationship between urban to rural population by 2050. And this trend of urbanization has been already attended by the Ethiopian government with this massive condominium housing project called the Integrated Housing Development Program. It's been carried out in the country since 2006. And so far has provided more than 120,000 homes to people in the country. As I said, most of the condominium housing has been built in Addis Ababa, but interventions like this have taken place in different cities in the country. We looked in particular to malaria transmission in urban settings. Jimma is one of those examples of where, in spite of substantial reduction in transmission, there is still some prevalence in the area, some presence of malaria in the area. Previous research has shown spatial heterogeneity in urban transmission, mainly associated to clusters of people living near water bodies, urban agriculture, and in peri-urban areas. Also, low levels of ITN ownership and usage. There has also been some forms of association with proximity to micro dams or stagnant water. And of course, other social dynamics like, weak health services, widespread economic disparity, and human mobility that have an impact on the way that people make use of their home spaces. So what we intended to do was a proof of concept exploratory study to see how a transdisciplinary intervention, a spatial intervention, could help to reduce presence of competent vectors in peri-urban areas of Jimma, specifically in this condominium housing, looking at the structures and the settlement at large. We mixed entomology, social sciences, and architecture, urbanism methodologies, and try to look at, how these different elements, the vegetation, the topographical design, the orientation of the houses, the materials, and of course, the social dynamics that take place in these spaces can have an impact in the transmission of malaria in this particular setting. Of course, urban areas present other sort of challenges, and that's why we had this interest in this particular type of housing. We started this research under two premises. The first is that this condominium housing follows a standardized type of design that has been repeated over and over again in different settings, and that does not account for particular characteristics of the cities where they are built, but also the uses of the space that homeowners make of these constructions. And also, when built, they don't take into account the potential, of course, for vector-borne diseases and potential outbreaks in this massive type of housing, which is, of course, not very much part of the housing tradition in the country. It's been it's more popular nowadays and associated with more, let's say, modern types of housing, but it's not what most of the population is used to. And second, that the dynamics of malaria in urban areas have to be analyzed from a different angle. And then, of course, this type of constructions should consider this possibility. I'll come back to this slide later on. So in terms of the methodology for the entomological part, we work with CDC light traps placed in 3 different condominiums. I'll explain this later to conduct an entomological survey that could tell us a bit what is the presence of the main vectors of malaria in this condominium housing. Then with the architecture and urbanism, we use a methodology called research by design that basically looks at the graphical output of maps and drawings and the literature to inform a bit of how the distribution and the composition of the settlement has an impact and is impacted by the residents in the particular area. And for the medical anthropology part, we used an ethnographic approach. We conducted in-depth interviews, focus groups, interviews with key informants, informal conversations in these settings. As I mentioned, we focused our research in 3 condominiums built in Jima town. These 3 condominiums, you can see them here, have different layouts, let's say, but a similar structure in their construction. The first of them, Depot, is a condominium that contains 90 households for approximately 250 residents. This condominium is somehow different from the other 2 in the sense that this one is administered by a local university and serves as the housing for some of the professors and administrative personnel in this university. The other 2 condominiums have now like a central administration, and they both are larger. Again, a difference between these 2 is that Egypt is a condominium that is very close to main roads in the city. And Yetebaberut has different structures, official buildings surrounding the condominium, and also some forms of informal settlements of internal displaced population around this area. The condominiums, as I said, house these 4 different types of houses. Different placed in different areas, but mainly the basic design is applied in all of them. These apartments are studio apartments or 1 or 2 rooms, and contain also a bathroom, an internal bathroom, and a kitchen, a small kitchen in all the constructions. These 4 typologies are illustrated here, and we look in depth at 9 of these cases in order to see how these spaces are appropriated by the families and how do they intersect with vectors' presence. For the entomological survey, that was the first part of our study, we identified presence of Anopheles and Culex mosquitoes in the 3 sites, including the major malaria vector in the country, Anopheles gambiae, followed by Anopheles parensis and the suspected vector Tustani complex. We found mosquitoes in the 3 condominiums, as I mentioned before, but interestingly, we found most of them outdoors. The CDC traps were placed indoors and outdoors in 3 different blocks of apartments and in different floors. In Addis Abeba, the condominium housing can be massive and have many stores. In Jima, in particular, these condominiums have only 3 stores: ground level, first floor, and second floor. The mosquitoes are mainly present. The vectors are mainly present during these months of rain in the country, the rainy season in the region. Which were the season where we collected the data. But we also found important differences in where the mosquitoes are present. And we found that in the ground floor, there are higher amount of mosquitoes compared to the first and the second floor in all condominiums. Guided by the entomological results, we started the analysis of the space and the social dynamics within these condominiums. And we, just for you to see how we conducted the analysis, we started from the black and white standard design, and then marked in each one of them where spatial modifications have occurred, marked in red here. We marked in green activities that take place during the daytime, like light green daytime and dark green nighttime. I'll explain this later. And then in blue, we mark the water network here. Then, based on the entomological results and where the mosquitoes have been identified, we look at specific dynamics where the receptivity of the mosquitoes could be higher. And we found out, came up with 6 layers of receptivity that I'm going to explain now to you. So the first category that we identified as problematic is the location of the condominiums themselves. These 3 condominiums are located in areas that are prone to floods. 2 of them have been built very close to the river, one of them very close to the river. And the third of them is in the lowest point of the city, which means that during the rainy season, water comes from the higher points and arrive to the condominium. Because of that location, floodings are very common. And as you can see here, residents have already taken some measures to control the flooding from coming into their homes, including building small steps at the entrance of their homes to prevent water from coming inside, and also elevating the toilet. So the black water, when there is flooding, doesn't come into the house. As explained in this quote from one of the interviews, particularly in winter or in the rainy season, houses are flooded, but the problem is in the construction. Seems like there is no knowledge of the setting in order to prevent this type of problems. Because also there is an alteration of the water network, the problem with the water system and the collection of water becomes more serious. And residents have decided to alter the artificial water network within their apartments, as I'm going to explain now. So initially, the water collection was designed to happen from the rain water to come to the ditches surrounding the condominium. And then the gray and black water was supposed to come through these pipes to the septic tank. But because residents experience problems with blockage of the water system within their apartments, they have altered the water system. And what we have now is that the gray and black water come all together to these ditches that were supposed to also circulate the water from the rain, and all together come to blocked septic tanks that are flooded, particularly during the winter time. So in general, residents experience constant presence of water in this area, and water that is contaminated because the alterations that have happened within the apartments themselves. This, of course, creates a lot of mosquito presence around the apartments, because as you can see, there is a lot, like the water is very, very close to the condominiums, to the blocks themselves. Also, we observed that the condominiums, when they were built, all the vegetation was erased from the area, right? And although there is vegetation in the surroundings of the condominium, there are no within the home, within the settlement itself. Although in some of the designs, they had included some common spaces with parks and green areas. These spaces were never actually built for the residents. So what we see now are these plain settlement settings, where you can see here, for example, there are green areas that have been just pushed away from the condominium itself. In order to solve that problem, let's say some of the residents have claimed a space over the ground level and planted gardens themselves, which brings the vegetation even closer to home. And we see in several of the condominiums that there are crops and like small agriculture taking place in these gardens, or in areas that are, for example, in the condominium that I said is administered by the local university. It has like a garden near the guards post in the settlement. I'll go a quick faster now. One of the elements that are more important in this condominium housing is the fact that they host different lifestyles that come together in a massive way. So for most of the families, the space within the apartment is insufficient, is very small, and they have therefore claimed some part of the common areas. So we see that like with corrugated metal or with different types of demarcation, they have either taken a space in the ground level or in the verandas and the halls around the apartments. One critical example of this is, for example, this apartment that is a studio apartment. Was supposed to be just a 1-bedroom with a small space here for an electric kitchen and the bathroom. This space changes all the time as the needs of the family that lives here. There is a four-member family, change during the day. So during the day, it's a living room. At night is a bedroom, and just the residents just put here some mattresses and sleep on the floor. So, and they collect them during the day to be able to conduct social activities during the day. Is similarly, because this space here is too small for the kitchen, for the cooking needs of the family, residents in this apartment have taken a space, claimed a space under the stairs in front of their hall, and created a kitchen that they use during the day hours. Because this is a claimed space and not a kitchen originally, they don't have access to water or electricity, so they keep coming from the apartment to the kitchen and circulating during the day. But at night they need light, so they created another small kitchen here that is used with this door open during nighttime. And all the residuals that come from the cooking come to these spaces of stagnant water that stay there for quite some time. Other type of modification is even this more drastic, that this is an apartment that was turned into a commercial space and claimed a very large space outside the apartment itself, where there is a clientele and food services provided at day and night. So there are substantial changes in the structure of the apartment that derive from the needs of the residents. In terms of specific mosquito preventive practices, as I mentioned here in this quote, there is a lot of circulation of mosquitoes, and according to the residents, it happens throughout the year. In our observations, we didn't see or rarely saw matching in between ownership of mosquito nets and the number of inhabitants in the family. We saw, for example, bunk beds where just one of the beds had a net. Or we also saw these kind of problems that come from the construction itself. Some of the windows cannot be opened, so residents have broken part of the glass and covered it with plastic or paper to have some form of ventilation, but also that allows the circulation of mosquitoes during the night. And finally, we also see very deficient flows of waste that usually accumulate in the lowest point of the land, as you can see here, and also in the ditches surrounding the condominiums. So as I said before, we put together all these categories to have like a more systemic idea of how transmission could happen in these areas, and we are analyzing these right now for our results, but we wanted to share with you a bit of how this systemic analysis happened. So in terms of our results, we found that the population in the condominiums, are at risk of malaria infection due to the presence of the principal and secondary malaria vectors in this area. Particularly residents in the ground floor seem to be more at risk. And we are observing this outdoor mosquito behavior that seem to be more present than indoor. Our study allowed us to look at housing units beyond the house itself and think about the other dynamics that could be happening in a larger scheme at the level of the block, the settlement, or the context itself. Informed by these highly specific contextual factors that could allow us to understand a bit better than transmission dynamics here. We saw how space is a very dynamic variable, even in this type of very like standardized housing solution. And we, of course, kind of got to this understanding that systemic approaches are necessary in order to more efficiently understand malaria transmission in urban settings. Important limitations that we wanted to share with you. As I mentioned before, we had planned for the methodological approach we had was based on first collecting this type of information, the entomological, architectural, and the ethnographic, and then have after integration of results, come up with the plans that could generate some form of improvement of the condominium as it is now, but also in future constructions with the population in these areas. But yeah, so far we haven't been able to do that, not only because of COVID-19 derived limitations in mobility for our team, but also because of political unrest in the country that has prevented our researchers from going to the area. We also face limitations in accessing secondary epidemiological data that we wanted to bring for this presentation. And just for you to know, some of the methodological insights that we have brought in this case have been also brought into new projects that we are, one of them funded and one more to be submitted later on. So thank you very much to our team, as I mentioned before, and to the funders and some references here. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, so much. That's a really, really wide-ranging and ambitious project. Fantastic, fantastic stuff. We'll move swiftly on now, to Francis Mutuku's project. And so this is in Kwale County in Kenya, Trash to Treasure. Francis, over to you.
So I'm going to talk about collecting trash to reduce breeding sites for Aedes aegypti in Kwale. We all know about Aedes aegypti being vector for dengue, chikungunya, Zika, among other pathogens. In the work we have been doing in Kwale and in Kenya in general, we have found this mosquito breeds a lot in trash, especially the plastic containers, which are often found in almost every homestead in Kenya. And that some studies have shown that where this trash or waste is removed regularly, they do reduce transmission of these diseases, because the mosquito doesn't get breeding places. So we had the main objective being to assess the potential of community-based recycling, which engages aspiring entrepreneurs to use plastic waste or repurpose plastic waste for profit in Kwale. And this would simultaneously improve health by reducing transmission of these diseases, and also engage these communities in income generating activities. So we have seen population grow very significantly in this area. We have not seen proportionate improvement in waste collections or management. And the previous studies that have been done in these areas have focused on the performance of the waste management systems and the waste generation behaviors, but not in how they can reduce waste or recover waste or recycle. So we purposed to see what behaviors we have here. But waste, a lot of it still remains uncollected. Our specific aims were to engage the communities, identify the volumes of trash, then we scope for local solid waste and recycling industries and market opportunities for the plastic waste and the intermediates. Then we also wanted to link to find a way of how best to mobilize the community to collect trash and link them to entrepreneurs. And then we would pilot a business incubator to identify local entrepreneurs and connect them with the community trash collectors. And finally, we would assess how this is contributing to reduce breeding of the mosquitoes. This is just like a summary of the aims that I've just mentioned. So I'll go to some of the things that we are finding in this area. We found there exists an informal system of recycling waste, and at the bottom of the chain are people who are commonly known as waste pickers. They collect any variables that can be recycled from solid waste and sell them to yard shop operators. I'll show you pictures of these yard shop operators, how they look like. And then the yard shop operators sell whatever they get from the communities to some middlemen. And these are the people who sell the products to the recycling industries. So with this in mind, we add our methods. We started with focus groups, and our focus groups were with community members and waste pickers. We wanted to know the types of trash, the current state of informal trash hierarchy, the barriers, and all the information they have. And we augmented this information by doing in-depth interviews with key informants like public health officers in charge of the area, the yard shop operators, the public service administrators, and the National Environment Management Authority officers in Kwale. Then we moved to bringing a lot of partners together. Like we brought a lot of people from the county governments of Mombasa and Kwale. The people who are involved in this business, and we discussed a lot of things that reduce the efficiency of removing the plastics from the environment. And then we are now currently in the final phase where we are working with the yard shop operators in the business incubator. And we are also at the same time assessing whether what they are doing is reducing the breeding of the mosquitoes by trapping the mosquito eggs in different areas. From the focus groups, we saw a lot of issues. There were people understood that they do not like living in areas with a lot of trash. But they were saying there are a lot of problems. They end up burning the trash. And there's also poor perceptions towards trash. There's a lot of stigma. And complaints of trash being disposed everywhere. And that is linked to there being no facilities, like there are no primary trash storage facilities around residentials. Most of the facilities are far from where people are living. They also blamed the local authority, which is in charge of collecting trash. So because they say they provide fewer facilities only near businesses and commercial places. They also give contracts to private contracted companies. They give them they are very few that are given those contracts. And so all those issues. Among the challenges that they the community talked about poor management and supervision. And those who are in business, like yard shop operators, they incur a lot of costs in transporting their recyclable materials to Mombasa and other places where they are going to sell. There was general poor knowledge on trash management in general. And then especially with the waste pickers, there was a lot of harassment by the community. When a waste picker is seen moving around the community, they think they are thieves. And so they are harassed by the community. They don't also have protective, personal protective equipment when they are doing this work. And they also complained that they get very poor payments from the trash they sell. So in conclusion, from the community part, the community did not value trash. They did not think it can create jobs for them. And due to that kind of attitude, there was a lot of stigma also associated. They saw trash as dirty, so it's not something they can positively engage in. And so we concluded there is almost non-existent recycling culture in these communities. So a lot of knowledge creation is really required. Local knowledge, and also making it convenient for them to participate, like making sure they have all the facilities and they are well informed of how and why it is important to keep the environment. That knowledge is lacking in the community. So we went deeper and tried to understand the relationship between the players in the informal recycling system that we have in Ukunda and Likon. Those are the two big towns in South Coast. So we started with the waste pickers. Some of the information is not here in the slides, but I'll mention that we estimate around 500 waste pickers are there in both towns. And from the small group, 200 of them that we interviewed, 50% of them use drugs. And that's why there is also the associated, the community harasses them. So you can see their age is medium age. They have very poor education. Most of them are married. They have dependents and children. They spend most of their time, like every day, collecting trash. And trash is the only income generating activity. And from collecting trash, they earn about $3 to $7 a day. And they don't collect trash from very far, like not more than 3 kilometers from the people they sell the trash to. Those are the yard shop operators. I think this is mainly because 90% of them just walk by foot. So they don't move very far from where they are going to sell their products. And so the challenges, you can see they are really harassed by the community. They also operate in very hazardous environment, and they lack personal protective equipment. They said that mostly they are exposed to cuts from sharp objects in the trash and smell, foul smell and smokes. Nobody mentioned about chikungunya or dengue. They only talked about malaria. Pets, very few of them collect pets. Then the other mostly collected materials are light metal, waste aluminium, or cast iron, and steel. So they, from their reports, they collect between 10 to 20 to 23 kilos per day. We don't know how true is that because this is reported information, but we are collecting data from the yard shop operators whom they sell to, which we are sure will be more accurate. It can give an estimate of how much plastics are collected on daily basis. And they earn between 70 and 300 shillings from, that is about $3 from collecting these plastics. And so this is like the system of solid waste management. And the reason I put this here is to show you that these people, the waste pickers, retrieve or recover any recyclable material, because you can see there were 13 items of materials that they look for from waste, from solid waste. And so they recover these materials from any of points, from where they are generated to even to the, they go even to the official dump sites and collect from there. Some of the yard shop operators do the actual collection, but most of them usually buy from the waste pickers. These are pictures of some of the yards. Already we have identified the yards to be a huge source of mosquito breeding, because they are usually like this, they are open, they have no shade. So whenever it rains, all these water collects in all these, and there is a lot of breeding. So one of the things we are doing is working with them to ensure that these yards have shades that will make it, will reduce the breeding even in the yards, not even in the rest of the environment. There are other things that we have noted, like to them, plastics only belong to two types, PET and non-PET. But it's, which may be one of the reasons they have challenges, as we will see ahead in their slides ahead. So we also looked at the yard shop operators. They are older than the waste pickers. They are more educated, at least. They are mostly males. I did not present the data of the waste pickers, but the 96% are males. They have more years in the trash management than the waste pickers. These ones, they are not harassed a lot by the community, but they are harassed a lot by the government. But their major challenge is price fluctuations. They have a lot of price fluctuations. But they also get stigma because people don't view working with solid waste as one of the best jobs you should have. So most of them do not use PPEs. As you can see, we interviewed 10 of them, and 3 said they never use any PPEs. They reported what would benefit them, the kind of training that would benefit them. And most of them are in this because it gives them, it puts food on the table. And the major reason, the major health risk they see is malaria and woods, getting woods from cats. So from our discussions, This is what they told us, that we should make national environmental management authority regulations friendly, where they should comply with the government, but the government should provide security. All these things they were talking. But they also acknowledge that the community has little awareness on the relevance of trash collection. So they said it would really help them. The last point there, form a group that can advocate for issues of informal trash recyclers, came out very early in other discussions. So we see a lot of stigma in these groups who participate in informal recycling. There are a lot of lack of financial incentives, because financial institutions do not really recognize their business as worth business investing in. And so we are tackling these issues with them, with the yard shop operators now in the business incubation program, including creating a lot of awareness to them about environment and other things. So in a bigger way, in a global picture, these were identified as the main setbacks that make these people not be efficient in removing plastics from the environment. So the market fluctuations, the low value of plastics, problems with the transport because of the voluminous nature of the taxes, the stigma, the lack of environmental awareness. And although they have been in the business for long, a lot of them are not, they still have they are still lacking some skills of business management. So in the business incubator, we are using two approaches. One approach is challenge approach, based approach, whereby we are looking at what challenges hinder them from being efficient, and then working with them. Like we are working on them getting all the yards inspected by NEMA, them getting licenses, all the licenses they need. We are also working with them to get them have an association that they can use to participate in public participation during county government events. And also they can get information. They can also argue for prices of their products, as well as all those. So the first four challenges, we are solving them using challenge-based approach. And the last three, which is stigma, environmental awareness, and management skills, that is business management skills, we are using training. So these ones, we are training them on how to deal with those three issues. So this is what they are saying. They hope to learn from this program, and we are tackling that between now and sometimes next year. So in general, this is where we are. We are now beginning the entrepreneur. We started at the beginning of this month. September, we used this as baseline. And now we are here and we'll go all the way to April for 6 months. We have done some knowledge attitude surveys, which have presented some of the results, and we'll be doing others along the way before we finish. We are going to conduct we had a problem getting the industries where they sell these plastics. Nobody wants to connect strangers to those industries. But now we are no longer strangers because we have interacted with them closely. So they have agreed to take us to some of the industries in Mombasa, in Nairobi, and we have set some interviews to talk to the owners of those industries, because we want to see, especially about price fluctuations, how that problem can be solved. And so we are also trying to continue trying to come up with another project of empowering the people, trying to input more education, because lack of environmental awareness is one of the biggest challenges we have, even in engaging the community in general. So in conclusion, we need a lot of sustained waste management awareness. That environmental awareness is key. We also hope through that education we'll be able to create a recycling culture. We also hope that our discussions with the county governments and the community will also improve on storage facilities, the primary storage facilities, and also friendly levies and taxes and all these things we hope will reduce stigma. They lack a lot of knowledge that connects diseases and the trash and the health risks involved and the management. So we are doing that through the incubator. We are training them. We also think there could be, if there are incentives for people to invest in recycling business, it could expand the plastic waste market. And lastly, we see a lot of potential having a lot of livelihoods depending on trash, because we have already identified quite a lot of people who are doing something connected to trash and they are able to support their families, but it is not being utilized well at the moment. And so this part of the team, we acknowledge BOVA network. I worked with people from Stanford, my colleagues from Technical University of Mombasa, Lydia Kibe from Kemri, and others, and also the communities from Mukunda, Likoni. We have been working very closely now with the yard shop operators, who are very many, but we only selected 10 to work with at the moment. And the county governments of Kwale and Mombasa have also been very responsive to our engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francis. This is such important work, and it's the details that you've been covered and the complexities of how this happens. I think I can't think of other studies which have drilled into this in this way, and it's so important. As time is pressing, I see that Claudia has very kindly answered a lot of the questions that came up from her presentation. And Francis, if you could just answer one that came from Anne Wilson, and she's asking if the yard shops were able to crush or pelletize the plastics on site, would that be a help?
Yes, that would really help to minimize the voluminous nature. And so we have one person who is doing it, but he is in Likoni, which is 30 kilometers from Ukunda. So those who are in Likoni are benefiting a lot from that. So it helps a lot because he shreds the plastics into small pieces and packs it in sacks and then sends it to the factory in Nairobi. That would. There is also baling, crushing them and making so to reduce the volume, which happens a lot. But they don't do it; they just sell it. So the way they collect, which makes them voluminous and they have problems in transporting them.
Okay, thank you. So I think we should move on. First, yes, so now across to Lucy. I've already lost my, I believe that's next to give us. So we've heard now from our 8 really excellent pump priming projects. The work you're all doing is just admirable. I'm really proud of all of them. So it just leaves now for Lucy to give a little outline of where we envisage going next, and then a few concluding remarks.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy Tusting and I'm a co-director of the BOVA network, and thank you, Fiona. I'm now going to give just a brief flavour of what we are planning for the next few years to take BOVA's legacy forward and then bring the meeting to a close. First off, I'd like to say a very big thank you to everybody for joining us today, and particularly to the organisers, Fiona Shenton and the Global Health Network. I'm sure you'll all agree it's been a very interesting day, and it's been excellent to see the results of the Pump Prime projects coming through. So congratulations to all of the PIs for all of your excellent work. So to start, just a quick recap on what we've achieved by looking at BOVA in numbers. So in 3 years, we have funded 8 pump prime projects on research linking vector-borne disease and the built environment. Thinking about pathways to scale up and future research, we've funded 7 grant writing workshops, and we've built on our existing relationships with PAMCA, with Rollback Malaria, with UN Habitat, and the Commonwealth Government Forum, amongst others. And finally, we've built an international network of experts in vector-borne disease and the built environment, with 3 open meetings, over 500 members, regular newsletters, and a website. None of this would have been possible without the dedication of the management team, so a very big thank you. Looking ahead, our task is not complete. Vector-borne diseases continue to threaten 80% of the world's population, and we would like to help bridge the gap with the built environment in the Americas and South Asia, as well as sub-Saharan Africa. Expanding urban populations will continue to be threatened by Aedes-borne infections, as well as the new threat from Anopheles stevensii, which is the urban malaria vector from South Asia, recently invaded into Africa. These challenges simply highlight the importance of initiatives like BOVA and the importance of tackling health in the context of urbanization, population growth, climate change, globalization. To continue the work that we've begun, we've put together a plan for the next 5 years. Our funding ends soon, but what we've done is requested a no-cost extension until January 2022. So what this will enable is next year for us to continue with the BOVA membership and network, and our pump priming projects to complete. What we also want to do next year is build on our existing relationship with PAMCA, the Pan-African Mosquito Control Association, to develop a built environment theme. So thank you to Charles Mbogo and Prosper Chaki for your support of this. And then in 2022, what we hope is to bring BOVA to the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine under the umbrella of the Global Vector Hub. And this will enable us to continue the website and the membership. The Global Vector Hub is an online open access community for vector control. And I've included here a web link to the website, and Frederick Seelig, who coordinates the Global Vector Hub, is here to take any questions that you may have. Alongside that, we want to continue our legacy by exploring opportunities for funding healthy housing research. So I'm going to close by saying I hope this has been a helpful insight into what we've got planned. And I hope that each and every one of you will continue to be involved with BOVA, because the most important part of what we have built is you, this international network of experts in vector-borne disease and the built environment. On this slide are the names of everybody who is part of our community, and I really hope to see this group flourish and grow into the next few years. So thank you very much again for all of your contributions.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Yes, I would just like to reiterate Lucy's thanks to all of you, to our management board, to our Pump Prime projects. It's been a wonderful afternoon, and we've had a great 3 years. As Lucy mentioned, we are seeking a no-cost extension, fingers crossed for how that will go. And we're very happy to be collaborating with the newly established Global Vector Hub. So I think we should leave it there, and thank one final thing, of course, a big thank you to the Global Health Network for supporting us in putting this on. And Heather will have put in the chat a link to an evaluation form, which would be great if you could complete that. I believe that will be emailed to people as well. And we will, of course, follow up with any answers to any questions that have not been answered during the course of this meeting. Thanks, everybody, and bye-bye.